so it'll take us a little while to get going here. So it looks like the 4 select board are here, and I will call the. Now, do I have to call this separate meeting to order?
Yes,
Joe, or is it all the same meeting?
Yes, I'd call it to
So
order.
I call the board of the select board meeting of Monday, June 7th at 7 p.m. to order, and we'll do a roll call vote, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. So we'll start with Darcy Dale.
Darcy Dale here.
We'll go to Jamie.
Jamie Knudsen here.
Rosie.
Rosie Kennedy here.
And William Olson is here. And we'll stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Some of us will.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we got a busy agenda, lots of discussion of things today. First, we'll do announcements and board openings. We do have a FinCom appointment tonight we're going to do, but there's still one more opening and 2 associate openings. The Hamilton Historic District Commission has 1 opening. Zoning Board of Appeals has 1 opening. The Open Space Committee has 2 openings, and the Hamilton Planning Board associate member. We had thought we'd had a associate that we had voted on. We're going to vote on a couple weeks ago, but that person unfortunately had to rescind their application, so we still have 1 opening for a planning associate. Now we're at the part of our agenda where we have public comment for 3 minutes of things that are already on the agenda. So if anybody wants to speak, please comment. I will recognize you. Okay. Then now we'll move on to Selectmen or Select Board, and I guess it's going to be hard to. Everything's written as Selectmen. We have to say Select Board. We have to rewrite all our outlines here. So Select Board, Town Manager reports. I will start. Obviously, we are going to work tonight on assigning committee assignments. So I think people have been busy with their previous committee assignments, but the only thing I wanted to add is that on Friday, I attended the Pride flag raising ceremony at Patton Park. It was a well-attended event, a great event, lots of energy and excitement, and I was thankfully part of it. And I think we have another one coming up in June for the Juneteenth flag that will get publicized out there to attend that. But it was a great night, great event, and that's all I have. So Darcy, do you have anything to add on
yeah, just
reports?
Acknowledging, this is Pride Month, and I know that the League of Women Voters, and we're always looking for new members too, but they're also looking for ideas on how they can study areas of civil rights and human rights. And we're having our annual meeting on Saturday at the library between 9 and 11. So if any members are out there and they've, got the time, it would be great if they could show up, where we're going to discuss the various topics of study that they're planning to do. So that's probably going to be my next big thing I'm going to attend. But other than that, I think we're good.
No, thank you for taking that up. I think it's a great idea. More collaboration, more public outreach, the better it will be for all of us. So thank you. Rosie, any other thing to add to reports for tonight?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. Just that I'm very excited that the master plan is in its initial phase, and we're going to be having a meeting with the full contingent of steering committee members this Thursday, the 11th. I'm very much looking forward to that. The second thing is I represented Hamilton at the high school, the Hamilton Windham High School graduation. When I mean represented, I mean I was the selectman there for the kids, of course, they were more in tune to all the exciting things they're going to do in the future. Anyhow, it was a great graduation. The weather was a little warm, but certainly it was beautiful, and the kids were all super and excited. It was really nice to see them so optimistic after such a difficult year for them. And then the other thing about the Concom, George Tarr had emailed me to ask more about getting a site walk together to look at the proposed MOA land that would be involved. So I would like us to consider that and put that on the next agenda so that we can get that firmed up. The Concom has been working hard on this request. So I apologize.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. And then I think we're going to have council look at it one more time too once they were done with it. So, but yeah, I would be in favor of a site walk. So we should get that out there and schedule it.
Okay, super. Thank you. So I think those three very exciting things were the three things that I had to offer.
And Jamie, anything else to add to reports for tonight?
No, except to just echo your comments on the Progress Pride flag raising ceremony. And it was sort of a mixture of somber mood, festive at the same time, and determined for the future.
And there may still be flags available if somebody's interested in having a flag, but maybe when Ann talks later, she can mention if people want a flag and they're available where to get them from. All right, so we'll go to town manager report. So Joe, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I'll just, if you don't mind, just real quickly, I have a town manager report that kind of came together today. I haven't sent it out to you yet, but hit a high point or two. Just want to remind people that as we've returned to normal, and with June 15th approaching, there have been no recent changes to state law right now. So Hamilton Town Hall has reopened to the public. In keeping with the state and CDC guidance, the visitors and employees at Town Hall or any public building who are not vaccinated are asked to continue to wear a mask while they're inside, but fully vaccinated people are not required to wear a mask any longer by state CDC guidelines. So we're following the state and CDC guidance the way we have throughout the pandemic. Additionally, the town does anticipate a return to in-person meetings of town governmental bodies after June 15th. In fact, we got updated guidance from our town council today. KP Law put out a position paper that there is pending legislation that would allow the continued use of virtual meetings for town government bodies, but it hasn't been passed yet. If it does pass, it'll only take us through the fall. So we are planning to return to in-person meetings beginning June 15th. That means there's about a week left for the state legislature to act to allow us the option for virtual, but until that happens, we're planning to be back in person in the memorial room. We're also working with HWCAM, as Mr. Melville alluded to during the hearing, to make that room have the functionality to be able to do a hybrid meeting where the board could be in person as required by state law, but participants could continue to in the meeting via Zoom or other virtual means, whatever we're using down there. So that's not likely going to be ready for next week. It's going to take a little while to install the equipment, but Bill has identified the equipment. He has money in his budget to buy it, and he's identified the vendor to install it. So there's a plan coming together. I'm hoping by early July we'll be able to do that. But certainly at this point in time, right now, your next meeting on June 21st will be in person in the memorial room, in keeping with state law on the matter. I'll let you know as soon as I know if the legislature acts before then, but that'll be all boards and committees as well. So,
is there any help you need getting that room ready, since it's been probably used for other things in the last year and a half?
It's a little bit messy. I'm going to grab some helping hands from the DPW department, and we'll give it a good scrub down and reset all the tables and everything the way they're supposed to be, and get some chairs up for an audience, and we'll see what it takes us. But I think we can handle it within the staff. Thank you.
Okay. Joe, anything else?
That's it for this week.
I mean, I know you had because of the heat wave today, you had opened up the council on aging for
yeah. Thank you for reminding me.
Some relief.
We opened the senior center as a cooling shelter. The public safety officers did, and I believe they're planning to do that again tomorrow. So from 1 till 5, if anybody is kind of in stress, they don't have air conditioning, if they're feeling a little overheated, they're welcome to stop by the senior center and visit for a little while and cool off inside. So.
And lastly, I just wanted to take the opportunity. We do have some exciting positions still open in town hall to work alongside you. So maybe we could put a little PR out there. What positions are you currently looking for in town hall?
We're currently advertising for an assistant to the town manager and community preservation coordinator, a building commissioner, a health director, a public health clerk. And we're also going to be having some positions for 2 positions that are grant funded that we got through the state DPH for a regional public health nurse to serve Hamilton, Wenham, Manchester, and Essex, as well as a regional public health social worker. That position's only 3/4 time. It's about 32 hours a week time to serve health, social needs of the members of the community. So it's really not in place of what we have in our own individual town health structures. It's to kind of augment and get us all used to working together and kind of building capacity so that the unmet health needs in each of the 4 communities can start to be met, identified and met. And so we're excited to have that grant for the next 3 years and hope it really gives us a better handle on where the cracks might be in our system. So
good. So yeah, so please reach out to Joe if you or anyone or yourself are interested in any of those positions, because
the positions are
a lot to fill.
At least 3 of them are already posted on the town website. The rest will be posted this week. I'm not 100% sure about the regional public health positions, but I know we were looking at the job descriptions last week, so they're about ready to go up too.
Okay. Is that it, Joe?
That's it. Thank you.
All right, move on to consent agenda. We have 3 things on the consent agenda. One is approved minutes of the May 1st meeting. That was the meeting we had prior to our town meeting at the high school. Approved minutes of the May 3rd meeting, and approve a banner in front of the senior center for Stop Elder Abuse.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Rosie had seconded that. So any further discussion? So we'll do a roll call vote. Jamie?
Jamie Knudsen, aye.
Rosie?
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Darcy?
Darcy Dale, aye.
And William Olson, aye. So those are approved. Now we'll move on to agenda. We have about 8 or 9 items to talk about. Most of them are discussion. We have a few votes as well. So we're right on target, 7:15. So the first one is committee assignments. So I think it's important. We're sort of a little bit behind on that because of the way the week's laid out and the meetings that we had. So it's important that we get this finalized in the next 2 weeks before our next meeting. So there was one that was time sensitive, and I spoke with Rosie and a few other board members. We appointed Rosie to serve as our the selectmen representative to the master planning committee, so steering committee. So thank you, Rosie, for that.
Thank you.
And I do want to make sure people get their choices. So I think people can send me an email on, and I can send you the list if people need the list. And just I'll send you guys the list today, and you can sort of number your choices. And then also, we have a topic that we can sort of jump to, but it was some time sensitive. I had Joe put on here in case anything. I can't wait for the 2 weeks. So Joe, in the last couple weeks since we talked, or Rosie or Darcy or Jamie, are there any assignments that cannot wait 2 weeks that you think are time sensitive?
I can't think of any.
Okay. So I think, so serve on your existing boards until we meet on the 21st. In the meantime, I will send you the list of all the boards and committees, and we'll get that assigned. Any further discussion on that or questions? Okay. The next thing is we had some administrative stuff. Joe had sent out the calendar between July 1st and December 31st on our meetings, and I think that Joe can pull it up on the screen, but I think there are 3, so due to all the Monday holidays, there are 3 Tuesdays in there. So we have obviously July 4th is being celebrated on July 5th, which is a Monday. So that means our meeting gets moved to July 6th. Labor Day is September 6th, which moves our meeting to September 7th. And I think Veterans Day is the 14th and moved our meeting to the 15th. So there are 3 Tuesdays on the list this year. So Darcy or Rosie or Jamie had a chance to review the schedules. Anything stick out as a problem date?
No,
Not
not
at
for
this
me.
point.
No, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So I think we need a motion. So can I have a motion to approve the meeting schedule between July 1st, 2021 and December 31st, 2021?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second,
Rosie seconds that. Roll call vote. Darcy Dale,
Darcy Dale, aye.
Rosie,
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Jamie,
Jamie Knutson, aye.
and William Olson, aye. And we will plan on meeting in person next meeting on the 21st, unless something happens between now and then. Okay. Any further discussion on that? So next thing on the agenda is appoint Christina Shankar to the Finance Committee. So Joe, you and I talked about this earlier in the week. I think you're going to follow up with John Prulich on just the process.
Yeah,
Did you get clarity on that?
I followed up with John and the moderator, Bill Bowler. So Christina was appointed to fill the vacancy of an unexpired term. Her term is up. She's up for reappointment. It's a Board of Selectmen appointment, so the Board of Selectmen has to appoint her for another 3 years. She has sought to be reappointed. In fact, the FinCom has gone ahead and basically said, as long as you're back, you're our chairman. So she was unable to be here tonight. She texted me or emailed me earlier today, just about 3:30, 4 o'clock, that she was traveling for business and was going to be unable to attend the Zoom. She was hoping that would not be a problem. I told her I would advocate for her that if she's been doing the job for about 2 years now and she's done a really good job. And I think that she works well with the board. I know you all know her. So I just food for thought, if you would be willing to appoint her so she can continue in that role.
Yeah, so my thoughts, sorry, go ahead, Darcy. No, go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, I make a motion that we appoint Christina Shankar to the Finance and Advisory Committee.
Second,
Second, any further discussion? So I think the only discussion I would like to say, just for process, we do have a process for appointing members to boards that we typically like to go through, but I am 100% willing to suspend that for this appointment because she is, it's a continuation of really good previous hard work, and I don't think anybody else could fill that role besides Christina. So I'm 100% for that, but I just want to acknowledge that we typically go through our process for filling the vacancies, but I think sounds like we have the unanimous decision here from the board. So I'm prepared to go to a vote. Any other further discussion on that?
I just want to say how proud and happy I am that she's taking on the chairmanship. I think that's fantastic, and I think the town will be better for it.
yeah. That's exactly what I was going to say. I think she's a very strong person in that role, and I do believe on this occasion it's certainly reasonable to suspend our usual policy to have them come in and then wait. So I'm very happy to appoint her tonight.
Jamie?
Yep, sounds good.
All right, so we'll do any further discussion, comments? All right, so we'll do a roll call vote. We'll start with Darcy.
Darcy Dale, aye.
Rosie?
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Jamie?
Jamie Knutson, aye.
And William Olson, aye. So thank you, Christina. Appreciate it, and we look forward to working with you in the future. So Joe, next thing on the topic was proposed cemetery fee schedule. I don't think I saw it in the packet. So is that something that you think was in the packet?
I thought it was supposed to be in the packet, but I have it ready. We did want to kind of get it in front of you for discussion, for your awareness, not necessarily for a vote tonight. We know that you like to see things at least a couple times before you vote on them. The Public Works Director has asked for this. Let me see if I can pull it up. I know I can pull it up, but there's two things to look at. One is this is the kind of fee schedule that he's proposing, and if this was missed in the packets, I apologize. I will make sure I send them out right after the meeting tonight. And it just shows what the current fees are and then what he's proposing them to go to. I've discussed this with Tim, and Public Works Director would be willing to be here to discuss this at your next meeting. Another thing to see is not just where we are and where we want to go, but also, more importantly, where we are in relation to the fees haven't been changed in several years. And when you look at kind of where we are, does everybody see that okay?
Oh,
Not yet, no.
No? Okay, let's see.
It says it started to share screen, but it's not sharing yet. But that's the question I asked you, Joe. Have we compared ourselves to other
Okay.
type
Other
fees in
municipalities
other
around.
towns?
Okay, can you see that now?
no.
Huh. Try that again.
I'm not sure if it's a big file for some reason.
That better?
There it is. Yep, we see it.
Okay, hold on. This isn't let me. Okay, there we go. So this shows you what Hamilton's rates are in 2003, what the proposed rates are, and then it compares us to some of our neighbors, and you'll see that even with our increase, because our fees haven't been adjusted in so long, that even with our increase, we are either at what other towns are or below in most cases. For instance, Beverly's a little out of line because it's a large city, but we're pretty much kind of just trying to bring the fees that we normally charge into kind of current day standards, and those fees go into the fund to help fund operations out there at the operations and maintenance cemetery. So Tim, as I said, would be happy to be at the next meeting to discuss this more in detail, answer your questions about it, but we definitely wanted to get this in front of you to take a look. Because if it does get passed, we'd like to try to have it enacted for the new fiscal year on July 1st. So
these rates haven't been changed since 2003. Is that a correct comment there?
Yes.
And these go to a specific fund. These don't go into the general fund. These go into a specific fund that just deals with the cemetery, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Joe, do you know how many we sell a year, just out of curiosity, roughly?
I don't. I didn't. I failed to ask that question. I know that you opened up a new section of the cemetery a couple of years ago, and so there is still room. There's still capacity to add, but that's
I was
of
just
course more
wondering if
maintenance.
we had a revenue stream, that we see every
I will-
year, roughly.
I will ask him that.
Thank you.
I will ask him that. How many do we? Okay. Any other
Joe,
questions?
in the I just had one question on in the second comment. It said something about OT premium. It didn't have a number there. Was that under vault burial or something like that? I didn't know if that was.
I think that means the rate is. We'll clarify with Tim, but I think that means that the rate is variable depending on like what staff member gets pulled in and works overtime to do the work. Because if you're asking for that to happen overnight or on a long holiday weekend or something, or the staff it changes the rate.
Okay. All right, so we'll put that on the agenda for next meeting and further discuss. And if you have questions between now and then, you can send them to Tim. Any other discussion on that from the board? Okay. Next item is the HRC recommendations for policy language. So when we met a few months ago or a few weeks ago, if time flies together, but there were some comments that the board had about that we had put the language together, but we wanted them, once they were formed, to sort of meet and decide if the language they felt needed some additional clarification or some changes, modifications. So we asked the HRC to get together and come back to us and present. So I think Ann is here tonight. She put a PowerPoint together of about 6 or 7 slides.
Yes.
So
actually,
Joe,
yeah.
are you gonna?
Go ahead. Sorry.
So Joe, are you gonna share that? Yep, there he is. Okay. So Ann, well, I'll give you the floor. You let us know how you want us to comment. If you want to go through the whole thing first, or you want to have discussion after each slide.
I'm happy to take questions as I go. It should take me only a few minutes to go through the whole thing, honestly, though. So
Okay.
I don't think I would say interrupt for burning questions, but I don't think you'll forget your question if you hold it to the end. As Bill reflected, I'm here to report back on the request that you gave us about 2 months ago to research our language to specifically see if it made sense for us to add women and atheists as classes that we would protect in the language that we had in our Human Rights Commission policy. So we formed a subcommittee of our group to do some very thorough research on this, and this is the outcome of it. So we tried to look at a very wide variety of sites that were widely available, and this slide shows you the types of sites that we consulted. We looked at other towns, human rights committees and their charters. We looked at women's groups, university style guides and guides on inclusive language, other diversity style guidelines, human rights groups, including the UN and the Human Rights Campaign, and gender identity groups. Next slide, Joe. So in our policy, the groups that we list are protected classes. And protected classes were first determined at the federal level and were first associated with the Civil Rights Act. And a protected class is any group of people that is protected by civil rights laws from discrimination in accessing education, employment, housing, financial services, healthcare, transportation, voting, marriage, free speech, and privacy. The current federal protected classes include those that we list in our policy. In Massachusetts, there exists a separate set of codified series of protected classes in law. And in that set of protected classes, sexual orientation includes people who are transgender. The Massachusetts protected classes are race, color, national origin, religion, sex, familial status, disability, source of income, sexual orientation, gender identity, age, marital status, veteran or active military status, and genetic information. So we looked at more than 15. Oh, you can go on to the next slide, Joe, that's fine. We looked at more than 15 Human Rights Coalition or Commission charters across Massachusetts. And we did not find any evidence that women or atheists were listed as protected classes in any of those charters. Women were covered under sex or gender identity everywhere that we looked, on all the sources that we looked at. Atheists were covered under religion. Even according to the First Amendment, atheist is protected as a religion. Now, the town of Arlington, Massachusetts, their Human Rights Coalition charter does include a definitions section, which addresses a lack of belief or skepticism of belief in religion in their definition of religion. And they define several other terms. So they have a whole section that's just definitions. So for example, they say, they define persons, they define religious views, they define family status, marital status, source of income, military status. They're just extremely clear on what every single word means that they speak of in their charter. So we did not find that it made sense based on the evidence from other places to add women or atheists to our policy. And then the 5th and 6th slide show you a sampling actually of the sites that we consulted, because for us to give you all the sites we consulted would have been about 10 pages of references, but there are several of the towns with and they're hyperlinked. So if you have them in your packet, you can go and visit their policies yourself. And then the prior slide is the other kinds of sites that we visited. So I'm happy to take any questions that anybody has.
Well, it is
Yeah, I mean-
concerning about women in healthcare. There seems to be quite a bit of discrimination that seems to be bubbling up across the country. So I would consider that a serious protected class, women's healthcare. And the other thing is with disability, it seems to me that the human rights groups that we do have really need to focus on what's facing us right now, which is a lack of first class, excuse me, entree into our town hall. What we're doing is that we don't have any kind of, and it's the law. This is the law. So all of the human rights entities that are affiliated in this area, you know, Hamilton has the coalition that works with us, and also the commission. And as a town leader and an executive on this board, I would like to see them focus like a laser beam on getting that done. That's the most critical thing that's really facing the town at this point. And we are lawless. This is going to be a huge deal if we don't start taking steps. And I think these HRC groups could be really important in getting the word out, showing people what's happening. We are not, this is not going to go away. So I was hoping that maybe you guys could pick up the mantle and help spread the word and get the education out there that people need to know. We are intransigent, and we're the only ones out here with this problem. And I believe the state is watching us because they were working with the Town Hall Building Committee on, they were guiding us on how to go about getting the ADA compliance set so that we were no longer lawless. It's really awful. We're one of the wealthiest towns around, and here we are, you know, people can't access their own government because we don't care. So to me,
Yeah, no, it's
if, you know, I would like to see that direction.
What kind, well,
Agreed.
I
So-
feel like this kind of gets a little bit away from
So-
the discussion of
and let
language.
me me redirect here. So but no, I agree. I think Darcy, a good point in terms of how we can help all work together. I think is a good point, because I think we have to get the project through. But unfortunately, today we can just talk. It's on the agenda to talk about that. But I just wanted to. But I think it's a good aside. But in terms of, I appreciate you guys. We're laser focused on what we asked you to do. You did a lot of research. So I get your opinion on the research. Are you recommending or not recommending that we add a definition section?
We are suggesting that if you want to be able to say that atheists are included and women are included, adding a definition section is a way to do that, because you can say that under sex, women are included, or under gender identity, women are included, and under religion, atheists are included. That would be the only way we would recommend that. But we don't think it's absolutely necessary to add a definition section. That could be your choice, because it's your policy.
That's right.
Correct. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And then was there anything else that you saw? I know these are the specific things we talked about, but is there anything else in the policy that you guys have identified that needed further development or discussion? Or this was the only thing you really looked at?
Down the road, potentially, we would like to develop a mission statement to go along with the policy that is at a higher level, so that someone doesn't have to read through the entire policy to understand exactly the kind of work that the commission does. And so at our next meeting, we may revisit the idea of the timing for that.
I don't necessarily, we'll go through the board here. I don't necessarily think I need a definition. I'd rather have you guys work on other important things in town, like educating our disability violations at town hall, but and trying to figure out how we can solve those. But I'll be glad to hear the board talk about if they think a definition section would be a good use of your time to help develop that. So I know Darcy spoke, and I'll come back to Darcy on that specific question, but I wanted to hear if Rosie had any other comments on this
Are you asking for comments specifically
from you?
about women and atheists, or just kind of definitions in general?
Yeah, I think the recommendation from the board is that from the HRC that we don't need to do anything, but if we chose to do something, it would be to do a definition. So the question to you is, do you think it's worthwhile to look at the definition section?
Well, when I think about the wording in the entire document, I think there could be some work on definitions. A lot of the terms are rather vague, and it would be helpful to have some parameters. So I think, I mean, I don't know how busy the coalition is. Is this something that would take an inordinate amount of time? But it is something that would probably require some thought. So I would like to see that. I'm one voice on the board. I would like to see a general definitions, a general definition section. I will certainly adhere to whatever the board as a whole decides.
Jamie, what do you think about a definition section?
Yeah, no, I think it could be helpful. I think it wouldn't, I mean, I think it is a little bit of work to do, and it would potentially engender a good bit of discussion. But it's certainly, ideally, I think it would be great. And I did want to add just one thing that, it's really a minor thing, but as part of what the HRC voted, it was, we did actually specifically say that it would be appropriate to put a footnote. So even if we don't do a whole definition section, to do a footnote next to religion to just indicate that it does include the lack of belief or skepticism. Because that, I agree that if you read that as a lay person, it doesn't jump out at you as, oh, this protects atheists. So there was a vote to say that, even if we don't do a full definition section, we do a footnote with regard to that.
Okay, and Darcy, I'll end with you in terms of a definition section.
I actually think we should explain with definition as much as we can, because things are changing so rapidly, especially with the gender spectrum, and a lot of people, they just don't know. And there are a lot of faux pas being made socially because people don't understand the they, them categories and all that. So it might be helpful, I think, especially for people that just aren't aware. So maybe if you could have a place to go, maybe you could point them in a P flag, a link or something where people can get definitions if you guys don't want to do the definitions yourselves. Maybe let people know there's a place to go where they can learn more, that kind of thing.
That's great. Yep, I think it's a great idea. So it sounds like we have a sort of a agreement on the board that it would be very helpful. We don't want to take away from what you're doing. And Joe, it doesn't change the policy. It's just a sort of an amendment to the policy. So I don't think we need to vote tonight, but I think I would, and I can jump in here. But what I think I heard you all say was that, give you the 4 to 8 weeks, so a month to 2 months of work on this, and come back to us with the definition strategy. And then Joe, I don't know if we need to actually vote on that, or if it's just because it's not part of the policy, just an amendment to it. But I think it would be a good, useful tool. And
it'd probably be good to take it up as an amendment to the policy. And
okay.
Given all the work that the HRC is going to put into this after a couple months, when it comes back to you, if you wanted to suspend your rules on having to have 2 readings on an amendment, it's not a full brand new policy, it's just an amendment. So you could take the work that the HRC is going to put in over the next couple of months and suspend your rules on having to have 2 meetings and consider their recommendation for definitions section at that meeting.
So, Ann, is that a reasonable request for between 4 to 8 weeks to come back to us with some definitions or a strategy for that?
Probably 8 is more reasonable, given that we're heading into summer. And I know for a fact that several members are not at our next meeting because of
Okay.
vacations and things. So
So we'll give you 8 to 12 weeks as you're ready this summer for the next
Thank
3
you.
months. So say
8 to 12
8
is
to 12
really
weeks.
perfect. Thank you.
And if you need, yeah, obviously Jamie, if Jamie needs to come back to the board between now and then to ask for further direction or some help, Jamie is can serve as the representative and help us with that.
Great. Great. And then
thank you for all the work that you did, and obviously, like I said, you guys have done a lot of research, and so you're trying to do the right thing. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I do want to put one other thing on your plate too. Is that I think it's important that we finalize the policy of Hamilton and the select board on our flag raising policy. So I would like to as well, probably in the fall as well too, get final recommendations from you so that we as a board can decide what we want to do. But I think you're a big part of us helping make a decision. So I know you're already working on that, but I think that's something we should take up in the fall as well.
Okay. Sounds good.
You were going to say something, Ann?
I was just going to say, and then of course, we are very happy to help with improving disability access in all sorts of ways across town. And so the timing just was not perfect with our formation and our starting to take action on things for that initial town hall vote, unfortunately. And so Darcy, whatever ideas you have for how we can help, we of course want to do that.
Thank you. Good.
So I think I am all set for this meeting. Am I?
All right, thank you, Ann.
Please do reach out with whatever we can do. We have our next meeting next week, midweek.
All right, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Bye.
So the next topic is our anti-bias sensitivity training, and that we've been talking about for a while. So Joe has
I wanted to ask if I just wanted to ask if the board would indulge. We have a couple of visitors here from, one is the IT director from the town of Danvers, and another one is Brian Luther from MAPC. The regional IT thing, I was just hoping if you wouldn't mind taking them out of order, just so that we didn't have to keep them tied up here all night long for some of these other items that aren't really pertaining to them. But it's up to you. I just wanted to make that.
Yeah, Joe, I have no issue with that. So, so we're going to go to the IMA MOU for regional IT shared services. And the goal tonight, Joe, is a discussion and a vote. Do we have to vote tonight, or is it a possible vote tonight?
I think it's a possible vote tonight. I'd like to defer to Colby and Brian a little bit. I think that, we're hoping to have, if we're going to execute this, be able to do it before July 1st. So if you can't vote tonight, we'll definitely have it on your agenda for the 21st. So it's up to you.
And okay. Well, I hope we can. And I think it's been once again a unanimous thought of all the select board that we're always in favor of regionalizing services if it can give us a better product and reduce cost to the town. And usually it does. So we're excited to hear about this proposal. So so go ahead, Joe. And I'm getting a little bit of feedback from somebody. So
Brian or Colby, you want to take it? I've shared my screen here, so you guys can take the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll kick us off. Thanks everybody for having us, and I apologize in advance if you hear any loud shouting and cheering or dismay of Bruins games on. I have roommates, so thanks for having Colby and I tonight. We're talking about a project that we're very excited about. Like Joe said, my name's Brian Luther. I'm joined here by Colby Cousins, the IT director in the town of Danvers, and we're here to talk about a project we've been working on for a little bit of time.
Brian, Darcy has a question. Yeah, Darcy.
I can't see. It's so small. Is there any way to enlarge that?
I'm going to try that right now. I'll try to do it right now.
Sharing?
Is that better?
That is better. Thank you. Sorry.
No
Oh
problem.
yeah, no problem. Yeah, so what we're here proposing is a multi-town regional IT collaborative that collectively looks at many of the problems and IT challenges that the North Shore communities face. Currently, the communities of Topsfield, Windham, Manchester, Middleton, Essex, along with Danvers as our lead hub, are at various steps of formally joining this collaborative that's set to start on July 1. Just as a little bit of background, in 2019, the communities conducted a feasibility study to report on the recommendations on regionalizing IT services. And we've been using this feasibility study as somewhat of a guide. There are a lot of recommendations, but the key ones were establishment of a regional data center in Danvers, the phase standardization of equipment, and then also the consistency of approach and understanding from the communities. We've made some progress on these recommendations. We've been working on completing the fiber loop between all communities, and in order to establish that regional data center, most recently we received $100,000 from the state ERG grant program, which is another key step in finishing the fiber loop. But today to talk about the contract itself, the MOU, and what the first year looks like. So I'm going to go through some quick contract points. And Colby, stop me if you have anything you want to add at any point. But so first, in terms of the MOU and what you would be signing for, this is the establishment of the decision making with the group and how budgetary decisions are made. So for multi-municipal groups, each community needs to be able to do what's in their best interest. This agreement does a great job of limiting any liability any of the communities have, giving you a quick escape if you find that it's not in your best interest. So like you said, you want to participate in a regional collaborative in regionalized services if it provides you a better standard, like a better service in terms of what you get. So this MOU, it's a relatively small amount of money upfront, and if in the first, and it does provide you the protections you would need in order to make the decisions that's best for you. It also establishes an annual budget process that runs in line with your normal budget cycle. So every year Colby and I draft an annual budget on what we anticipate some of the major projects and key points of the year. We provide that to the towns for deliberation. We set annual goals. That's all done before the end of December. That gives you enough time to deliberate on your end whether that's acceptable, and then go back and then be able to find the money and allocate it to it if you find it worthwhile. So I just want to talk a little bit about what the first year is. Many of the first year is going to look like there's a lot of tasks for Colby to obtain an intimate understanding of your infrastructure, your challenges, identify any major projects down the line. And then one of the major focuses of that is also understanding the main vulnerabilities in terms of cybersecurity. As we've seen in recent years, cyber attacks are an increasingly certain threat, and one of the things we want to focus is on making sure that the towns are covered and that we work towards a better cybersecurity posture. But one thing that's also so in terms of the financial commitment, it's just over $4,000. We've worked that out to be just about 1 hour of a week of Colby's time. That frees him up to work on the collaborative, and on your particular infrastructure. That also includes any questions you have in terms of like what we should do about this, any procurement assistance, infrastructure capital planning, anything like you're using, sometimes that's really, when it comes to this type of environment, one of the most difficult things is having a trusted partner. And the first year we're really focusing on making sure that Colby and I are more equipped to understand exactly what what softwares you use and what where your main challenges are, what we need to do in order to, as in relative to the whole group of what we need to get to. And I think this is the MOU is the first key step in establishing that process in order to make decisions, the mechanism to meet and deliberate, and kind of grow that group consensus and learn from each other. And I think Colby, if you have anything to add, you can feel free. Colby's my technical guy. If you have any technical questions, he's the guy you're going to want to ask, because he's the expert on that. So, but yeah, Colby, if you have anything to add, we'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that there's it's an hour of my time, but also I have a team backing me of specialists. So I'm well versed in state contracts, IT state contracts, and that type of thing, purchasing, procurement. But I also have an engineer, a data center guy, a project manager, and an office coordinator that help me with all all kinds of aspects of IT. So that team comes along with this collaborative agreement.
Yeah, and as Joe's showing you on the screen, the MOU is pretty brief. It does cover the key points in terms of what your financial contribution looks like in FY22, what the process looks like for a financial contribution in FY23. It has language about group purchases and how they are made. Any type of additional sources, because this first year is really more about knowledge, and I mean, we do want to provide some services and give you some options on purchases that you can make in the immediate to help better your own IT infrastructure and your services internally. But what we the first only main cost right now is in terms of Colby's time. And I mean, if going through some of the state contracts recently for managed IT services, $77 an hour for Colby's time, 1 hour a week, is actually quite a reasonable rate in terms of IT specialists and his capabilities. And it's not necessarily to pad the pocket of Danvers. It's just really a way in which he can backfill his staff and provide them the resources to free up his time in order to work on this initiative and this project and work towards a stronger region. So
what other towns have? So I see you list Topsfield, Hamilton, Windham, Manchester, Essex, Middleton. What other towns have already signed this?
So right now, Danvers,
today.
Essex, Middleton, and Topsfield as today have signed the agreement. I am looking to hopefully have Windham soon. I believe that at their next meeting that they will provide the actual signature authority. But yeah, so as of now, we have 4 signatures, including Danvers, that are the lead. So that's what we're, and all of the towns, at least have shown their support in some way. And what is good about this initial first step too is that because there's not any large group purchase to start, it's not as if say Manchester decided that they couldn't or it would not affect any of the other towns, and that's kind of what we were aiming for in this first fiscal year too, is to make sure everyone's comfortable. We've got to build some trust and start establish relationships and start to learn about each other and how to move together as a collective.
Brian, can I ask you, is this a prototype kind of a situation where it's never been done before? And if not, can you talk a little bit about what you've seen or what the experience has been for those?
Hey Joe, can you stop sharing screen so we can see each other?
Oh.
That's a great question,
okay.
Darcy. I would say that there's no real blueprint. I mean, there's key concepts to municipal collaboration, but there's no key blueprint in terms of IT itself. This collaborative would be one of the first that I've ever worked on, and we have seen over the years, but that there's interest, but it doesn't always culminate into an actual agreement. So just even getting to this step is actually is an accomplishment and pretty remarkable. But when it comes to the key concepts of municipal collaboration, this has all the, there's a shared need. There's a benefit in terms of what we can do together better alone. Better together rather than alone. And also the communities do have a very positive working relationship and familiarity with each other. So it's got all the key components of what would be a successful collaboration. And I think, because it is fairly new too, there's very little liability in terms of what you're signing up for right now. And we are going to, make sure that everyone's comfortable and do a phase-in approach. Colby and I, one of our first steps is we are, putting out to bid for a managed service provider, but none of the towns are obligated to purchase off that from day one. It's just to get some pricing that we can be locked in for a period of time. So when we scope out projects, each town can phase in over 1, 2, 3 years. Everyone has different contractors that they use for their managed IT services now, and I think getting on the same page with those things is one of the first steps. But we're really not looking to force anyone's hand on that. We want to make sure that everyone's comfortable with what they're doing, and we're doing our best to have your interest at heart. Yes, Bill.
So yeah, Brian. So I can just go high level. So basically, what you're asking right now is basically a $4,000 investment to sort of form a collaborative and do the research to form the collaborative. There's no commitment beyond that.
Yep.
You think it might take a year, but it could take shorter than a year, could take longer than a year, or it could be continuous improvement over many years, right? So
yeah, as
so right now
as
you're
we go
thinking,
along, there'll be opportunities to, like, when we have a project that we've, the group has decided we want to pursue, Colby and I will find the pricing and research the project, and then go to each and everybody, and you can all make a decision on what's best for you, and the timing of it. It's definitely something that's we're gonna take our time with. I mean, obviously, but when I say take our time, it's in the municipal world, it's not like we're, next month we're going to have a rapidly new system. These things take years of budgeting and planning, and so we're willing to work inside that time frame, and we're committed to this project. And I think, from MAPC's point of view too, this is a great learning experience on how these types of things we've already, like, just even what we've accomplished so far. We've heard from other communities that are really interested in this project, and we have, even in the MOU, created a structure to, if there was interest from a neighboring town that would work, there's a process, make sure that your interests are also, made sure, like, it's got to go through a process in order to, like, see if there was anyone else to be interested in joining. But yeah, I think, through the MOU, there's a lot of, decision making process is really there, and it has your interests at heart. So you're not committing to any major, large, snowball-y effect type of liability down the line. It's really just
and
the
you're
way.
looking at, and you're looking at everything from hardware, software. I mean, you're looking at everything across the IT world, right? If you wanted to buy computers, we wanted to fix computer software, hardware, all that stuff, right? You're looking at pretty much anything involving IT, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of ideas. Yeah, we've been brainstorming ideas and what we want to look like, not even just this next fiscal year, but down the line. Like, when it comes to, like, municipal software, there's one software provider that a lot of the communities use, and support can be very difficult and challenging. So even using this as a mechanism to hire individual staff that could staff the communities for, like, just a support network for that type of software. It's really a great way in which to get the communities to learn from each other, talk to each other, and then identify goals and put in place some steps down the line that we all share cost, and collectively have more of of leverage when we have these kind of negotiations. And as a collective too, as we go forward, we're a much more attractive client towards the vendors. We have, with Colby and I, back in October, put together an RFI to kind of talk to vendors about how they would go about, this is not a typical model for vendors to work with. And all of them expressed, obviously when you're sales, you express interest, but they were all, thought it was a great, way in which to approach the issues in which the towns, see and, like, work together as a collective. But also they were pretty excited about it as like a thought exercise in terms of, like, working together and where we can go in the next, 5 years.
I'm concerned about ransomware, Colby. Do you have a plan for that, or is there any kind of system that you use to protect towns from that?
Yeah, that's one of our first year goals, actually, is cybersecurity, addressing inventorying and addressing the cybersecurity posture of all of these communities, and trying to bring everyone up to a minimum level so that they're protected. That's what we aim to do within the first year, at least the planning process for that. As we go into budget season and procurement, anybody that has budget right away, we can help facilitate any upgrades or anything that they're able to do short term, but also the strategic planning and budgeting long term for that type of thing as well.
So I had a question for Joe. So Joe, this 4,000, where does it, what bucket does it come out of, and when is it due?
I can manage that from my consultant line item in the town manager's budget. So I was one of I wanted to make sure I could afford it. This is something that Hamilton has been involved in the discussions with these other communities since 2019. Shortly after I got hired and brought on, some of the other town managers reached out to me to determine if we had interest. One of the main reasons I have interest is that we have a very good IT help from Andy Wood right now, but he's a one-man shop. He kind of knows all of the architecture and the infrastructure and everything that goes along with it. And he does a pretty good job forecasting what our needs might be, as long as we're not, planning any dramatic changes. But he's a one-man shop. At the end of the day, he gets bought out, he hits the lottery, something befalls him and he can't do his job. I have nobody. This offers us an opportunity to have a partnership with somebody so that we could have quick means to recover from that kind of a situation. It also allows us to think out long-term. And just so that nobody's concerned that we're not, taking Andy Wood, the nice guy, into consideration. Andy's been a part of all these conversations that I've been a part of since 2019. He's regularly with the folks around the table in the collaborative. When we just redid his contract right now, because he was due to be up at the end of June, I gave him another 3-year extension, but it includes language for us to leave when it suits our interests as a town. He is well aware of what we're trying to do and why. He supports us in that. He's got a business going. He's got other clients. He's going to be fine if we choose to go in a different direction. Right now, we still need Andy, and we want him there. We want him there to help us help explain our state of affairs to Colby and the rest of the group. And we want to be able to plan what the next steps are. We can't really plan those next steps until we have more information. I think that this is a good first step to getting that information.
No, I support this. I think that with IT, well, sorry, one more question for Joe Darcy. I'll let you go. So Joe, that was my next question though, was the $4,000 obviously goes to the consultant, but who internally supports because obviously important for us to be involved in the process. So who within our organization would support Colby and Brian, and what would that cost?
So me and Andy, so it won't cost any more. And it's part of what Andy does for us, and it's part of what I do for you. When the collaborative starts to work out, for instance, what the budget would be for FY23, they have to have that to us by December of this year. That means that's well within our budget planning phase. They bring that information to me. I bring that into the budget planning phase. We talk about, is there anything in here that we want to take advantage of for FY23? If there is, then we can move forward in that way. If there isn't, we can stand pat just at the $4,000 entry level and continue to participate. So we've got flexibility within this agreement, and like I said, it gives us an opportunity to see what they're able to find out in terms of cybersecurity software programs and things. I also think that this is a good way to continue to align ourselves with what our neighboring towns are doing. We talk a lot about doing additional regionalization. In order for that stuff to work, a lot of our platforms and stuff all have to be equalized. If we're working on one set of software and Windham's working on a different set of software, well, we can't merge our assessing departments, right? Because we've got Patriot and they've got Vision, or vice versa. This gives us an opportunity to assess: are we working with the same type of equipment, same type of software, the same social media platforms, same internet providers? That would allow us to merge more quickly. We also bring something to the table that the rest of the collaborative finds useful. Hamilton and Windham a long time ago spent a lot of money and got fiber installed in our towns. Now, they were dead ends on either side. They connect Hamilton and Windham really well, and they connect us to the outside world. But in order for this collaborative to really work, they're trying to tie a fiber loop through all those towns. So they're tapping in and on Windham's side at Beverly, and then they're going to tap out on our side into Essex, and that ties Essex into their network even better for them. So we're already hanging out with them as it is, because our infrastructure is mutually supportive. So I think that it really makes sense to join the collaborative for that reason as well.
I just had a couple of questions. How will this affect our employees? Will this reduce our need for certain members? And the other thing is there an escape hatch? So we decide if there's something that comes up, is there an escape hatch?
Yeah, I can answer that second question real quick. So the escape hatch is, you have 30 days to, it takes 30 days notice to withdraw. And the financial contributions that you've agreed to and placed for that fiscal year continue. But so you're not on, it's on a 1-year fiscal basis, and any group purchase or any large, any purchase in general, you have the authority to not, opt into that purchase. So all of our purchases will be, on a, case by case basis of like, this town is in, this town is in, this town is in, this town has decided not to go through with this purchase right now. And then also to withdraw from the agreement, it's 30 days. And then you still have to fulfill your contribution for the rest of the fiscal year. But after that, you're free to walk away.
And the question I had about employees.
Yeah, so as far as we don't have any employees that do IT, we have a contract relationship with Andy, and at some point in the future, that is going to be either superseded by this or replaced by this or replaced by something else. as we see the need to. What I do think it does is it probably helps us avoid having to hire staff, which I think is just as valuable. If Andy were to leave and we weren't in this collaborative, I would be left with the choice of hiring another vendor that I don't know, and I don't know how to really go out and make sure I'm getting the right services for them, or hiring somebody. And again, I would be, trying to hire somebody in a world where I don't have a depth of knowledge that I, feel really comfortable that I'm getting the right IT person to come in, right? The more we rely on electronic business, doing all of having people pay the bills over the line and submit applications, and the more we rely on our IT infrastructure, the more we're going to need to have resources to make sure it's stable and running. So this wouldn't help us get rid of any employees because we don't have any in that realm, but it should help us avoid having to hire them.
And it'll eventually offset Andy's costs, right?
Right.
So,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I got a quick question, quick to ask anyway. And a lot of my questions have been answered. Bill and Joe, Bill's question, Joe's answers, and Darcy's questions as to there is a need. I guess my only reaction after hearing that is more like, well, my only concern is that 1 hour a week is almost too small for us to get, how can anybody do anything meaningful in an hour a week for a big organization? So that's my thought. And obviously it could be increased, and you've talked about how it could be increased in the future, but for the first year, that's kind of what it is, right?
Well, I think for the first year, it's only creating a plan. It's actually we're not getting the IT services the first year. All we're doing is getting them to make a plan for IT services. So that's sort of the difference, Jamie.
Okay.
This is
And I'll speak for Colby just for this point, and it's priced at 1 hour a week. But again, Colby's not like an IT consultant that's going to bill you to every quarter of an hour. I'm speaking for Colby. I hope you don't mind. He's a municipal employee of the town of Danvers, and this was priced in a way to allow him to backfill some of his staff's time, and that's the way it was feasibly created. But it's not as if you're going to be getting an extra bill if Colby had to spend 3 hours 1 week on like looking at a special project of and procurement help for that. It's really just a pricing mechanism for us to you got to start somewhere, and that's the way in which that Danvers has decided. And like the one thing that I want to make also a point in terms of they're not just representing your best interest too, but representing Danvers' best interest as well. Is the intent is to have a fulfilling relationship on both ends. So we're like, at least in the other communities, you're not trying to really give Danvers the raw end of the deal, and Danvers isn't trying to do that to you. It's really building trust and learning this first year, making sure that Colby's very familiar with your infrastructure and your challenges, and then moving forward with a group approach and potentially starting more procurements and expanding services down the line, and really maximizing the access capacity that Danvers has in terms of their IT staff and infrastructure and support network.
And long-term, we're looking at the possibility of a regional data center. We already have some fiber optic connections in place, and Hamilton is one of those communities that's already connected through some grant funding we got. So they have the ability to leverage the economies of scale that we can provide in terms of data center hardware. So long-term, they'll be able to translate when it's time for capital refresh of hardware, IT hardware. They'll have the option to purchase at an operational cost hosting services.
And one addition to that point as well is Danvers already provides separate services outside this agreement to Essex. They host, Colby can talk to you all about that. And when I said, like, Darcy, the question you had about whether this is like a blueprint or a model, if this has existed, there are a lot of communities, smaller communities, that rely on the expanded infrastructure and IT capacity of larger communities to their neighbor. I think for this region, in terms of the greater Boston area. And that type of agreement already exists between Essex and Danvers. So in terms of one town, contracting with another town for these services, that's something that's been done many places throughout the country. But in terms of like this regional collaborative, in order to work together to identify fiscal year goals and put together a budget and work together and really try to standardize our equipment infrastructure, and then down the line software, processes, things like that. I think that's really rare, and that's what I meant to talk about. But in terms of the actual sharing of hosting services and relying on larger towns that are your neighbors that have the proper fiber connection, that is something that has existed, and then we're looking to build off that as well.
We've also found that this collaborative has made us a bigger target for grant funding opportunities. So we've raised over $280,000 in grant money from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts since the beginning of this collaborative. So, and we expect that to continue. So when we file an application as a municipal IT collaborative, it generally gets some traction, and we've had good results with that so far.
Rosie, do you have any questions or comments?
My first question is, I'm trying to understand the purpose of this in the sense of, is there a current unmet need?
Security.
That's my first question. Well, that's one aspect of it, right? But I'm, is there a current issue that Joe is concerned about? I mean,
I think we heard Joe. Yeah, I think we heard Joe talk about the fact that he's got one person,
right?
And that person, it's better to have is a better organization, and our buying power isn't great right now, so we need to upgrade systems, but we're not able to sort of buy as a group. So, I don't want to speak with Joe, but I heard loud and clear that Joe's really concerned about, although he appreciates, and I say Andy or Andrew, but he appreciates all that he does for the town, moving forward, with security and software and all how quickly things are changing. It probably makes sense if we can get more bang for our buck and pay the same amount of money per year, but have a group looking at our best interest rather than one individual.
And so this is more infrastructure, the hardware versus the end user. Do I understand that correctly? So for instance, if I have a problem accessing something and can't get the software to work as I need it to do, are you telling me that Colby would be available to help with those sort of things? Or is this something that Joe and at the administrative level at Town Hall would be benefiting from?
Probably more Joe at the administrative level when it comes to IT procurement and vetting of products and the different purchasing avenues and helping manage project management, implementation, that type of thing.
Yeah, and I was just gonna add to that too. So and even communities like Danvers, they do have a relationship with managed IT service vendors. So like in terms of like a help desk support, one of the first procurements we're trying to do is to find a partner for managed IT service, like managed services, so for a help desk. So in terms of like the day-to-day use, the benefits of this collaborative for that particular situation is that it's not just Hamilton or Windham or Essex on their own with their own managed contract for that particular service, but the group that all can be like the contract can be managed through through Danvers and Colby, and every town has a say in that type, but the buying power you all have collectively is better, and then the way in which to manage that vendor over the whole in the course of the region is easier because it's Colby has a relationship there. They represent more towns, and like any issues can be solved quicker in terms in a long-term goal. But there will be still a relationship with effective IT like back office process for a small town still includes what would be the Andy in this situation, but it'd be a larger managed service provider that we've all collectively decided on and purchased together.
Okay. So Joe, walk us through what we'd like to see happen here tonight.
I mean, if the board feels comfortable and you want to vote on it, you can. If you want to wait until the next meeting, you know, I would like a vote at some point. It's a contract that I can enter as long as the board, you know, blesses it for me to do that. I think it's in our best interest to have this additional resource, start to develop our plan for the future, or develop our, you know, create a stronger, more sustainable environment for us to operate in going forward. Again, that's not in any way an indictment on Andy. He's done a great job for the town over a number of years, but he's one person with a single owner shop, and you know, he does the help desk function for us now, but that's not going to last forever. You prefer to have something that you know what it's going to be. You want to have some you know, comfort knowing that, you know, if something happens, we still got somebody that we can rely on. It shouldn't come down to one single point of failure in a system like this. So.
It's okay, but
Is there a,
so the issue right now is we'd be paying two people, two entities to do what Andy's doing now. And I understand you're talking about the future and the what if. I'm just having a little trouble sort of justifying the short term and the long term right now. And I don't know, it's hard to articulate it exactly, but I think this would be a 2-year contract. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
With no opportunity to opt out if we decided on July 2nd of 2022 that we thought we had wanted to go in a different direction, that we would still have to pay the fees. So I'm still
Rosie, let me just correct, because that's not totally correct. So I just want to correct the statement. So right now, all we're voting for is to spend $4,000 over the next year. Although it is a 2-year agreement, we're not voting anything other than the $4,000. So we can opt out in a year from now by not voting for the funding for the following year. So that's one thing. So right now we're only voting for the 4,000. The second thing is that this is not doubling up. What Andy does right now is just works on. He's task oriented. He's not developing a plan for the future for us. That's not on his task. So he's not this. So Brian and Colby are going to be working on a master plan sort of for our IT system. That's what we're paying them for. So they're not working on it. They're completely working on something different than. So we're basically paying a consultant $4,000 over the next year to develop a master plan. They come to us within that year and say, this is the master plan, this is what it's going to cost. And then we vote on it again. And we can say no, we can say, no, you know what? The $4,000 was well spent. We had a consultant come in and tell us what we need to do, but we decided not to move forward with it. That's our right at that point. So just to make it clear, and once again, you may not, we are paying an extra $4,000 like consulting fees. I just wanted to make sure Joe had the money somewhere, but it's only for a consulting fees to get us to the next step. Colby and Brian, did I misspeak at all on that?
Nope, that's a good explanation. Thank you.
Well, but that should be what we decide, and not what the consultants are saying is the plan.
No, what I'm asking is I interpret the agreement correctly.
Mm-hmm.
That's
right.
all I asked Rosie. So yes. So
okay, but from our point of view, so does this agreement say if we decide at the end of fiscal year 2022 that it's not quite what we had anticipated, the agreement becomes null when we don't vote funds for the second year? Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, so the budget process is basically what Colby and I are going to do is over the next 6 months put together, a plan of action in a budget for the next fiscal year, and that's also something that you have direct input on.
Right.
So
I was actually asking Joe because he's put the MOU together, so I just wanted to get his perspective.
If we sign up for this now, they'll develop a budget for FY23 over the next 6 months, and we'll have opportunity to provide input into that. What do we think should be in that budget? What are we not comfortable with? we'll bring that budget, and then we'll bring that budget back to you and to the FinCom and everybody else in our budget process and say, is this something we want to continue? If not, we have the option to, at any time with 30 days notice, say, okay, this isn't what we expected it to be. We can withdraw. We got a good product from them. We got an idea where we're going, but they're going in a direction we don't want to go in. So we can end the relationship at that point. That's fine.
What's the deadline to make this decision?
Well, they'd like the contract, the agreement is just supposed to start July 1st. So, I mean, you don't have to, there's no imperative to vote tonight. You have another meeting on the 21st. We can put this back on the agenda for the 21st. Again, I know the cadence of these meetings. I know you like to have 2 meetings, so I wanted to make sure we got this on the agenda tonight, talked about it.
Okay.
If you felt comfortable, we can move forward. If you don't feel comfortable, we can have another discussion on the 21st. That's totally fine.
Yeah, I think I just have a lot of questions still, and I would like to think about it, talk to Joe, talk to people who might be more knowledgeable about these endeavors than I, and I just want a little more time to develop the idea. I would feel more comfortable with that.
So Joe,
Sorry,
go ahead, Darcy.
That they're going to also consider this?
I believe it's on their agenda.
Or have they already?
I believe it's on their agenda. I think they have a
Okay.
meeting tomorrow night.
Okay.
Okay, so that would
Yeah.
be interesting to
Yeah,
learn.
I might tune in to listen to their perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, I certainly am all for regionalization. I'm just a little uncomfortable with the proposal for so many towns to be on this. Towns who have perhaps a different focus, and I'm not saying they do. I'm just saying that it's possible, and I would just like more time to really be able to think about it.
Okay. So Joe, I think this is a great step in the right direction. I think the partners are both regionally and geographically, as even the town's touch. I think it's a great partnership for people. But I'm for this thing, but I'm gonna agree with Darcy and Rosie that per our policy, it's good to digest over the next 2 weeks and put it on the next agenda. So let's I don't know we need to make a motion tonight, but I think Brian and Colby, I think this is a great step in the right direction, and I think that the way our town works is 2 weeks of hard work and hard research, hard thought. We'll come back and make a vote in 2 weeks.
Can I ask one more?
Anybody else have any? Yeah, go ahead, Darcy.
If we do manage, and I know we will, get our town hall ADA compliant, which means it's going to have everything redone, including IT, is that going to be, would this be something, Joe, that you think would mesh with our new, is that something they could help us do?
Yeah, I think they could. Conceivably, once we're part of this, as we're looking at, what do we need the building to be able to provide from an infrastructure perspective for how do we wire the building for the offices and the memorials and things like that. They'd definitely be able to provide us with some additional advice and input on how to do that and make it a way that would be compatible with supplies that they have access to. We could potentially even save money if the collaborative has a way to get a better price, get a better pricing on it. We could buy it through the collaborative.
Yeah, that's right in our wheelhouse. That's exactly the type of thing that we'd be looking to provide help on, definitely.
So there's an added.
Yes.
Good thought, Darcy. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else, or should we move on and put this on the agenda in 2 weeks?
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just in case anyone has any questions, feel free. Joe, you have my email. You can reach out to Colby and I at any point in time. And we look, if you need us back in 2 weeks, we'll see you in 2 weeks. This sounds great.
Ryan and Colby, thank you. Thank you very much for your help tonight.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you for hearing us.
Thank you. So Joe, we have a few things left on the agenda, but I see that in May we do have a citizen who made a comment. So she's in May. You wanted to talk? Are you on the call to talk to the community building event, or just in general to listen?
You're on
You're on
mute.
You're on mute.
There you go. Sorry. Hi, everyone. I am here to propose a community event idea. I know it's late and I don't mean to keep you guys, but I've been thinking about ideas.
So wait, so sorry. So May just wanted to get confirmed. That's why. So Joe, I think we might just jump to this because May's been patient in line. So that was our last agenda item, but I think we can skip to this real quick and hear from May, and then we can jump back. So go ahead, May.
Thank you so much. So my name is May Rothschild, and I'm actually, I have a dog walking business in town, and I also work very part-time at the Natural Dog, and I've come across, we are very—
And sorry, so to recognize you have to get a name and address of your resident. Sorry, so.
Oh yeah, I am a resident of Hamilton. I live on 20 Moynihan Road. I've lived here about—
Okay, thank you.
And I have 2 little children. So I working as a dog walker and working at the dog store in town, I realized that we're a very heavily dog community, which I think it'd be a great idea given like a post-COVID event. Like I feel like is hungry for some sort of fun, interesting event in the fall, possibly, to do a dog day. And this would entail, I sent out a proposal, like an outline, and I did talk to Angela from the Shop Local, and I just wanted to share with you guys. And I think I just need, like, I'm still trying to, I don't really know what to do, but I just would like the blessing and like be able to like get a date if this is something that I could get okayed with the town. So my idea entails in the fall, possibly the weekend after Columbus Day, a Saturday, it would be a dog parade with a costume, with the dogs in costume, which would also mean there could be like a contest. So there's could be prizes, and this would be taking place on Railroad Ave, and then followed by that would be like a canine demonstration by a local canine unit. And then also possibly the myopia dogs walking through. And then at the end of the day, everybody goes for a hike, if you choose to, over behind the myopia training fields. But during all of this, like those are just like kind of like high points, but also on Railroad Ave, there would be vendors, reps of like different local dog companies, like bakeries, like gear, and there's a lot of like opportunity with like all types of dogs, like themed, and other people from just like that have people, real estate brokers, like people that just want to have a tent or a table where they can just like kind of promote their business, but also like participate in a community event. And then meanwhile, maybe this could mean like people could put, like it could be a fundraiser for a rescue or something. And as I said, I spoke to Angela over at Shop Local, and she a monogram, and she has the Shop Local group.
That's good. So May, let me just, so I want to take a step back for everybody else. So, and I appreciate your enthusiasm. So I put this on the agenda with Joe because we're getting a lot of, comments, are we going to have a Memorial Day parade? You can do July 4th because people are anxious to sort of have some team community building events. And so I apologize, my camera online is not working, but you can still hear me, correct?
Yes.
So, so we want to get some ideas and kind of have a discussion with the board about what those events might look like, when they might happen. And I did talk with Sean Timmons as well on some events, and Sean had commented that that obviously it's good to have a partnership. A lot of the events we've done have either been partnered with the community house or with the American Legion. So it's always better to have an event that sort of has a co-sponsor. So I put on the agenda as an open discussion for us to start planning for. I thought a fall. I mean, it's hard to do something in the summertime, but start planning for a fall event to make up for some of the events that we didn't do last year. So, May, I appreciate your enthusiasm, your creativity, and I think we definitely want to make a list of all the events we can come up with, and then have further discussion over the summer in terms of what makes sense and how we can help support this stuff and what needs to be supported by the community, and what doesn't. So, but no, so I mean, I'll give you a few more minutes to, I'll give you another minute or two to sort of finish up here, but I wanted to sort of back up and give this select board sort of an understanding about why it was on the agenda and why we appreciate you bringing this to the discussion.
Oh yes, of course. I agree with all what you have to say, and I'm new to doing any sort of community planning, but I've had lots of experience with organizing events when I was in my 20s, but I also have had my own business for about 10 years, so I know how to like manage and kind of multitask. And anyway, so I do think that there's lots of opportunity in doing a dog day. I think it would be a great community event for people to see each other and people to celebrate their dogs, and for people to kind of bring out their, their, what's the word? Like, I can't think of it, but, just
spirit, bring out their spirit.
Spirit. And something that's other than, I know we have like Hamilton Day, we have Community Safety Day. And this could be an opportunity for Railroad Ave to kind of bring out their spirit of like those shops on that street. And also, bring in the myopia dogs to like participate in the community. We don't see them enough, and they are part of our community. Be nice to have them like leading us to a hike at the end of the day. It'd be nice to see how.
To that.
Well, okay. Well, they do walk through town on Bay Road, so I don't see why they wouldn't be able to do that. But
I think next steps for us is sort of as a board to collect all these ideas and just kind of decide what we think is the right use of our time.
So what I am proposing, because I would like to be the one that handles all this planning, I'm just asking for like the blessing. Like, I understand that there are details like having police detail and like getting permission from all the shops on Railroad Ave and like needing to figure out how, there's a post office right there.
There's insurance and paperwork and yes, there's a lot to it.
Yeah, I mean,
and it will take a
right, there's
for it. I'm
right there. Yeah, I mean, right.
Single and
I mean, so I think there's two. We're voting on like a race today that we're not the town's not supporting, but it's using our town property. So there's kind of two ways to have an event in town. One way to have an event in town is just to decide to have an event in town and rent space and get approvals and put signs up. And so that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is sort of get the town and the community organizations to buy into it. So I think you have two venues there to sort of have the event and plan for it. But I think what the next step for us would be to, if we're talking sort of about town sponsored and town involved events involving our rec department and our DPW, things like that. So what we're going to do is probably going to make a list of events, possible events over the next couple of weeks, a couple of meetings, and then we'll sort of vote. But in the meantime, I don't know that we want to stop you from planning your event, because I think you could go with or without us. And Joe, you can sort of talk to how, and maybe in 30 seconds, so just talk to how, because there's two sorts of events, right? There's events all the time at Patton Park that aren't sponsored by the town. They're just sort of in the town, right? So
I think one of the things to keep in mind too is the shop local group in cooperation with the HDC and the town of Windham and the town of Hamilton got a grant earlier this year to do some capacity building for the downtown district. Part of that was to also do an event in the fall downtown. So the mayor's already reached out to Angela. I think is a great first step, because I think that they're still really in the early stages about how they're going to do that event and what it's going to entail. So it might be a good time to see if there's a way to work together and collaborate on that event. That would their HDC's and shop locals goal is to bring people to the downtown, see the shops and the businesses that are down there, help benefit the business district, but also to show the community that the downtown's a great place to hang out. So I think that this could be a perfect, timing here for a nice marriage of those two ideas to work together in tandem. So I think, I spoke to May last week, and I encouraged her, keep having conversations with Angela, because I think that's the right direction to go in, because I'm sure they're going to be coming to us. And Shop Local's already done one downtown event on Railroad Avenue, close the street. Remember, and I want to say it was the May of 2019. It was a great little event. So, we would love to see them, continue in that realm. The other thing is that we have had some internal conversations with staff, and the public safety team wants to do a bigger, better, revamped public safety day. Obviously, we got away from doing it last year. That's also a fall-time event. And so, I know Russ Stevens has already talked to Sean Timmons a little bit, and was going to reach out to our partners for things like Memorial Day and
Labor Day.
Community House to see if they'd want to partner on a bigger revamped public safety day. I don't necessarily think that we have to do just one event. We've missed 4 or 5 events over the last year and a half because of COVID. So if we have the time and resources and that we have enough people volunteering to help, you might be able to pull off 2 events in the September, October timeframe. And I think that would be great for the community. Like Bill said, if you wanted to, you can start to plan your own event and, kind of just get permissions for the uses of fields, or you can work with Angela or the folks in the downtown shopping district, particularly since you're
I'm trying to figure out, who I can get a blessing from I really ideally would like to have Railroad Ave as like the spot. I don't want to use Pingree Park because in the fall there's like soccer, there's sports and stuff like that. I understand there's a lot of like red tape to go through, but I'm up for the challenge, and I can talk to Angela more on like going forward, but I guess I just want to like have a date, like a goal, and like the permission from the town to like go forward with, potentially putting something together. But I don't want to start like, I want to like make my time worthwhile. Like I'm a single mom of 2 little boys, and I have a business, and so I would like to make sure this is worth my while, and I really want to do this because I think this. I've talked to so many customers about this idea, and they all loved it. And I think that
yeah. So May. So I guess we can talk offline, but I think there's 2 things going on here. One is that we're in an early stages, right? It's probably gonna take us a while to figure out what we're gonna do. But you don't need our blessing. Like what you're suggesting is a great event. I would attend it. You don't need if you want our blessing, you have our blessing to go create an event. If you want the town support, it's going to take a little while for us to sort of discuss and vote and decide what we want to do. So, but you don't need our blessing to have an event. You just need to put it together and file like they said, file the paperwork. And I can talk with you offline about what that process is. If you want the town support of it, we also could talk about that, but we're not going to be able to do that for probably 2 or 3 meetings because we sort of talk about things and then we vote on them. So it's a little bit slower process. But once again, I don't want to stop you. I think a lot of energy, a great event. And I think, I think you should continue meeting with Angela and figure out how you can put it together. And then we can circle back with you because we're going to meet, I think over the next, we meet every 2 weeks. We're going to meet again on the 21st and again in July. And hope my goal, and I sort of want to turn this back over to the board because I haven't heard, this is really about bigger discussion about what events and if we want to do a town event. And I think it's important that we need to promote other organizations that have events in town, and then we need to also have town sponsored events. I think they're both equally important. So, May, I think you kind of fall in line with probably either one of those things. So, but yeah, I would get with Joe and myself. We could sort of walk you through what it would take to do it because I think I have 2 dogs. I would be there. It sounds like a great idea. So
thank you so much.
But yeah, but
listening to me,
yeah.
and I still like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'd love to talk to you or to Joe whenever it's a good time for you, and just to see like, I'm not asking for financial backing or anything, but I think your point is right about like finding somebody to partner with in terms of like sponsorship. So thank you. I appreciate it.
But no, thank you for coming and presenting that. I think it's a great idea. And this is what we want more of. This is what we want to promote. So I'm glad it was on the agenda tonight so you could get out there and talk about it. Cause hopefully people out there heard you on and they're going to offer support and help to you. Cause I think we need more people out and about and meeting people and being outside. So, yeah. But I do want to hear from the board on other events or what you think we as a board should do to promote events in Hamilton. So and it's a new agenda item, but Rosie or Darcy or Jamie, what do you think we should aim for the fall? Do you think we should do a Labor Day or a Columbus Day or public safety? What should we do as a town?
When May was talking about dressing up the dogs, I immediately thought of Halloween because all the kids go to the fire station and they have the pumpkins, and maybe they could extend the weekend, make it a weekend celebration, and maybe do the dogs on one day and the kids in the fire station on the next or something.
And actually,
loud.
Yeah, Darcy, that's a good point. Oftentimes I live downtown and I always have a million trick-or-treaters, and
Yeah.
invariably there are just as many dogs who come along with the kids. So that's a cute idea. So May, I just wanted to say to you, keep developing this project, because for it to come before us sort of officially, and if you wanted our support or our endorsement, you come back, you have some great ideas, sort of narrow it down, and then flesh out those ideas so that we have a firm idea about what your plan is. And I agree with Bill, you have a lot of energy. So I would encourage you to keep working on it. Maybe it could be something in conjunction with another event. I don't know, but it's good to sort of brainstorm about it.
Just so you know, Halloween is a Sunday, the 31st this year, and the day before is the 30th is a Saturday. So if you wanted to do like a doggy Halloween is the day before Halloween, and then kid Halloween is on as trick or treating the next night, that actually might work real well. I don't know if that works in your timing, May, but that's kind of cute. I just checked the calendar, so you did.
Scary dog.
No chocolate for the dogs.
Oh, there's plenty.
Every dog gets its day.
There are plenty of dog-friendly treats out there.
Yeah.
So Rosie, Darcy, give me any other brainstorming events we should think about, or I think we should keep talking about this, even if we don't talk about it tonight. But I think it's important for us to get an event in the fall.
Yeah, I've been thinking about the bonfire that we couldn't have because of the COVID, and we were lucky the year that I reinitiated it. We're very lucky with the weather, and it was a really fun event. So I'm just wondering if it might not be fun to do something, I don't know, in the fall, that's sort of a community event that's not going to cost $1 million. Families, I'm way on board with this. It's just off the top of my head thinking about, I did so much fundraising that Joe actually yelled at me because we had to develop. We had to open an account.
I disagree with that characterization.
Okay.
I didn't yell at you.
No, you did not. I apologize, but just that I had funding left over, and it would be great to repurpose that. And so many people really do want to be involved in community events, and I've been sort of pondering something like maybe this is just brainstorming, but maybe at the bonfire we did something called the Reindeer Games, and maybe we could have sort of use Patton Park to have a series of games, right? Throwing balls to see who can throw it the farthest, and we do it with age groups. Just have sort of a, what do you call that, a field day or something, like for fun. I don't know. I'm just thinking.
No, it's good. This is what I want to have. Just some open discussion. I think it's important that we do something. So
yeah. So those are kind of my thoughts, just because I remember, boy, when we were playing, the kids were playing games at the bonfire. The kids were having so much fun. It's just.
What was the date of the bonfire that you're?
Well, when did we have the bonfire, Joe? It was
January.
It was
2019. Because we burned the old Christmas trees.
Yeah.
It's the Christmas tree. You're talking about the Christmas tree bonfire, yeah.
Yeah,
but it was December. It was January of 2020.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
Was it? Okay, yeah, God, I'm sorry, the time. Well, and what we had ahead of time, Bill, had that sort of game section at on the tennis courts. And we really came up with a bunch of kooky games that were really fun. And Michelle Lee Carroll was on that committee, and we just came up with some kooky fun ideas, and the kids loved it. So I don't know, I would be willing to do something like that again.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. That's a great event. So Joe, we got a Halloween thing and we got a bonfire thing on the list.
And like I said, the public safety team and Sean are already talking about a public safety day, so in the park. So there's a couple different ideas there. And
then obviously the partnering with something on Railroad Avenue would be, I think, a good idea with Shop Local.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and involving May in that maybe.
What's happening for 4th of July, Independence Day? Anything? The community house?
No,
I talked with Sean and
our partners, Community House does a lot of fundraising to help underwrite some of the costs of that event. And in early May, everybody had pulled stakes. By the time the governor changed the landscape, we didn't have time to do the fundraising and all the things that go into that to be able to help it happen again. So unfortunately, we're not alone. Because everybody I know has canceled theirs around us. So even Marblehead had the ability to go forward with the 4th of July fireworks festival, and actually the reason they canceled them was because they were afraid that by being the only one, they were going to be inundated with hundreds of thousands of visitors, and they didn't feel that they had the capacity to handle that, so they just figured it was easier to cancel it altogether. They didn't want to be the only one.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe if Labor Day made sense, because I think school was supposed to start before Labor Day, but I think school's now starting after Labor Day. But that meant if people were back in town before Labor Day, it might make sense. But if people are still on summer vacation, then it doesn't. So, I don't know if that was worth. But I need to look at the school calendar again to see when school is back in session. Yeah, anything else? I just want to throw it out there, but I think we should put it on in 2 weeks again and maybe narrow it down. But I think it's important because it takes a lot of planning, as you said, Rosie. So if we're going to do something in the fall, we need to start now and figure out who's going to run it. But I think it's important for us to do something. I think it would be important to the town, and it's a small thing, but I think it goes a long way to build community. And I think we need to do that. So.
Yeah, I was thinking this particular event that I have been thinking about for a while, maybe on a Saturday around in October or something like that, because it's not really hot, it's not really cold, and everybody's around because everybody's in school. So
maybe task everyone to come back next time with an event and a date and maybe a partnership for it, and then we can sort of talk about next steps. Anybody else have any comments before we move on? All right, well, thank you again, May, for joining the discussion. I think it's important that we're going to put something together. So it does take a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of volunteer hours. So thank you. So Joe's going to go back to the first page of the agenda, the anti-bias sensitivity training and team building retreat. So there's something we talked about for the last couple of months about something that we think is important to go through as a select board. And I also talking to you and talking to Sean, you had reminded us that there used to be team building events that we're allowed to do. So if we sort of worked the two together, it might be a good event and a good day of fun to sort of get to know each other, work together, learn, and not have to focus on town events, but just focus on working better together as a group. So Joe, why don't you present to us what we need to talk about tonight and what we need to vote on and when we need to schedule it by?
Sure. So, if you recall, when this first came up, we had got you 2 quotes for 2 different kinds of service. And we were really looking more, I think, holistically at the organization as a whole. We had a price from one more local group here in Cambridge for overcoming unconscious bias. That was a 90-minute session for up to 35 participants and a good sized price tag, but not outrageous. And this was through a group called Diversity at Workplace Consulting Group. There was another, there was a second one, and this was a full, more vetted 21-page PowerPoint presentation from a company called Treliant, and theirs was almost all internet-based or virtual-based with 1, 2, and 3 year licensing pricing proposals and the ability to pay per person over those 1, 2, or 3 year commitments. I asked Michelle to go back and see if she could identify some others. The other companies that she was able to identify are all booked out through the end of the year. This has become a hot button issue that a lot of people want to work on. I still feel like we may want to do something and work a little bit together as a kind of leadership team first. If you wanted to, Bill, as we discussed, roll it into kind of a combined retreat with the Board of Selectmen and some training, you could potentially get one of these trainings scheduled for the board and myself and any staff you thought should be there, and then do the training as part of the retreat. And then that would give us an opportunity to see if we think that the material that's being taught would be something that would be applicable and be worth purchasing for the rest of the organization, either the boards and committees or staff, however we feel. And then kind of give us an opportunity to kind of make sure we know what we're getting before we enter into a bigger purchase. I'd be willing to go back to either of these two companies and see if they'd be able to create something a little bit more tailored for us on a smaller scale to do something like that if the board members are amenable to that, and then identify a day in which you'd want to try to do it and see if we could pull that together. Because I think Darcy's and Rosie have raised a really great point. I think that's a really important topic for the board and leadership to talk about, and I hate to let it linger past the start of the next calendar year because companies are booked up. But
yeah, I had three questions, Joe, and I think you addressed a couple of them. But one was sort of what's the biggest difference between the two groups, and is one in person versus virtual learn? I'd rather obviously do in person if that made sense. Second question I had was how much planning needs to go? Is this all customized? I mean, is there a lot of planning that needs to go ahead of that, or do we just sort of hire them and then they just show up and do their thing? Or is there a lot of planning between now and then to sort of make sure it's the right format and the right topics?
I think it's a little bit intuitive. I think that they work with you a little bit to develop what you're looking for, particularly the in-person company. They talked about in their proposal that theirs involved 2 pre-training sessions and a post-training session. So if we're doing a much smaller group, hopefully for a much smaller price, just to try and get an idea of the training and how it works, I think that we could probably do it in where the administrative staff, myself and 1 or 2 other people could kind of set up. Michelle Lee, for instance, kind of set up, make with maybe Darcy or somebody from the board, make sure we know what's going to be taught. Then you do the training, and then you have a kind of a breakdown afterwards and after action to kind of make sure it was what we expected and that we feel like it's accomplishing its goals. And then, assuming that it's successful, and we all feel that it was the right training, you could talk with them further about how would we roll this out to staff or to other boards and committees and things like that in the future. So that was just a thought that to try to move this along, because I think that the two proposals are quite different, and the Trilliant one is kind of, it looks better on a cost basis, but it's almost all virtual, and I'm not sure how effective that would be.
Yeah, so I think tonight we sort of have to make. It would be great if we made 2 decisions. One would be sort of timing, and if we want to do it before 2022, we unfortunately need to select for one of these 2, but I'm sure one of these 2 would be fine. I'm in favor of obviously in person versus virtual, but I'm only 1 vote on the board, so we need to have that discussion too. So let's start having a discussion about timing. If it makes sense to do it, then we have to pick from one of these 2 vendors, and then if people are more in favor of a virtual versus, and then sorry, the third question for Joe. Sorry, Joe, question of Joe: how different are they? What the plan is. And the third one was, like you just talked about, was bang for the buck. If we're paying for 50, does it make sense to have 50 people there, or do we all agree that it's better to start small and then if we like the training, offer it again for a larger group? So I think those are the 3 things we sort of need to talk about. So Rosie, I don't know if you want to start that discussion. Do you think we need to move it forward quickly so we get it scheduled before the end of the year?
I think for me, the format is really important. And in fact, Ann Brady and I had a nice conversation last week. She is planning on the Human Rights Commission having a forum in the fall, and we talked about what the issues would be. We talked about how to address them. And one thing that I would like to see is there's this concept. I just attended a couple of conferences about this called conflict resiliency. And it talks about not one group telling another group why they should feel something or how their behaviors are wrong. But it was a very structured conversation about listening to each other and understanding each other's points of view. Because when you shut down one point of view and you tell people that they have to feel this way or behave this way, and that and that's the only approach, it tends not to really have a meaningful exchange of ideas. And so when I look at these two companies, I just was hoping that we could get a broader range of the type of forum, the type of trainings that we could be engaged in. So I would rather, if it took a little bit longer to find the right group for us to engage with, then I would be willing to do that. But I will certainly agree to listen to other points of view.
But do you think that diversity, this is what's the name of the company, Joe, is Diversity at Workplace, right? That's the name of one of the companies.
Yep.
And that's the one that's willing to tailor it to what you're sort of talking about, Rosie. I think that if we, in theory, let's say we agreed to move forward with Diversity at Workplace, we'd have 2 pre-train sessions where we would, assign somebody from the select board to work with them to sort of tailor what you're talking about, right? Not out of a box, but more of a tailor-made thing. So, and I agree with you. I think it needs to be sort of what we want to hear, not just what they think we want to hear, right? So, I think it is important that we have those, and I like that they have 2 prep meetings to plan the session. So, but Rosie, I think what you're saying, I think it from their material I read, sounds like they could give us what you are asking for, but it would take some work, right? And some planning, some discussion. I think the other one, which is called Trilliant.
Yeah. I struggle with that one myself.
Need to change their
They're
name.
out.
I'd say Trilliant. Trilliant.
Trilliant. Okay.
Yeah.
But they're more like you said, virtual. You just pick what they have, right? They probably have a bunch of different sessions.
Yeah.
You just click the
Yeah,
ones
they talk
that you
about
want to.
they talk about tailoring it to you by putting your logos on things and everything else. But I think it's really geared more towards large corporations and things. We're a corporation, but we're not as large a corporation as some of the companies that they listed. I think that we really need to. My personal opinion, if you're interested in it, is that we need to pay attention to the personal aspect of it, who we're talking to, who we're trying to reach, what message are we trying to share. We're not trying to check off a box, right? So because our people in our HR and law offices told us we should check off this box and make sure everybody gets this training. We want to actually do something that matters for how we operate,
us,
right?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
I'm a little bit more inclined towards the Diversity at Workplace myself, but that's.
Is this the more expensive one, Joe?
It is the way that they presented it, right? Because they were thinking there was going to be a training for 35 people or so, and so it was more expensive that way. But you were basically going to get somebody from their company to help you with 2 meetings pre-planning and then the training, and then a gathering up afterwards and like, what did we learn, and is this, how do we fix this, how do we make things go forward? So what I'm proposing is that I go back to them and say, hey, look, we want to do this starting out with the board of selectmen and a couple of others, whoever you folks choose. And we would like you to tailor pricing for a much smaller group, but we'd like to get a good training and then, kind of really understand it. And then we can work with you about how do we do this for our organization as an entirety, for our community as a whole, and see what they come up with their way. So my goal would be to negotiate them down to the price, because we're not going to have 35 people. We're going to have 5 to 10 or something. So
yeah, and this is kind of a new. It's not a new concept, but it would be a newly introduced concept, and
Yeah.
I think it would be very meaningful, very helpful. So, but I like having a little more flexibility in the program. So, and I definitely would be for in person. I don't know. So, because boy, I have learned a whole lot in the past year, and I think it's a great opportunity to bring people together. I want to make sure that we're bringing everybody together and learning from each other.
Yeah, I agree.
That would be my goal.
So, Joe, do we know if diversity at workplace has done this for other, like do they have a reference that we could check for other towns they've done, or we could, if we could just check some references?
I can find out. Michelle had found them and reached out and had their initiated the conversation with them, but she's away right now, but I can find out.
I like how they're a local company. I mean, they're based right in Cambridge, Mass. So, would anybody on the board like to work with Joe to see if this company is the right company to do it with? Would Rosie or Darcy or Jamie? I'm looking for a volunteer to sort of work with Joe to work on this between meetings to make sure that by next meeting we can either say, we want to bring it to a vote, or we want to find somebody else to work with.
I'll help.
Okay. Thank you, Darcy. So
Darcy,
we need to
I'll be
make a motion.
your consultant. I have a little time next week, so I would love to just talk with you about it. Yeah, I think it's great.
All right, so I think, so Darcy and Joe can work over the next 2 weeks and talk with, look at references and talk with Sue Jun at the Diversity Workplace, and then come to us and say that we should make a recommendation that we either vote on them or we look for another consultant company.
Normally,
I would like to do it.
Isn't there normally is there a third? Normally, when you do, get quotes, you have a third.
Yeah, both these prices came in under $5,000. So we just have to follow best business practices. We don't have to get 3 quotes. We tried to get more, and like I said, a bunch of companies demurred and chose not to offer us any pricing because they can't do anything for us until next year. So,
sorry, Bill.
I think they're hoping the best that their pricing might change between now and then. So they didn't want to commit themselves to something.
Yeah.
I think it's important. I mean, I don't want to rush it. Like I agree with Rosie, but I do think it's important that we do it sooner than later and start learning as soon as we can. So hopefully we can make this work in the fall. Do you want to have any discussion on this? I think the last agenda is. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Darcy.
No, I was just going to say maybe we'll have something in 2 weeks after Joe and I have done our magic.
I think that the last thing on the agenda is the you can run race info. So it looks like we got a lot more information this time around, and we got the routes and we got the dates. So
you also have an email. You also have an email from Lieutenant Scott James.
Scott James.
This company's been here doing this in town a number of years. They do a good job. One of the races takes place a lot in Hamilton, but not all. And the other run just goes briefly through Hamilton. Is mostly in, I believe, Manchester and Windham and stuff. So, the police recommend, approving it because, frankly, they could potentially run on the streets without your approval. But these are they're not overwhelming races. They don't, crush our streets with onlookers or anything, and they don't tie up a whole lot of time. They are legitimate races. They are viewed as qualifying races for some other marathons. So they're half marathon length. You run, if you're in a certain category and you want to run the Boston, this is considered a qualifying race for other marathons. So they're kind of important races on the calendar.
Do we get reimbursed
for voting on 2 races?
They're not expecting any costs for us. The police aren't expecting any real cost for us. They have been able to manage it without incurring any additional costs. So it's just directed patrols along the route.
And the race organizers would pay for the details and the use of the cruiser and all that.
Yeah. Any details would get paid for by the race organizers. Yes.
Okay. I had a couple of questions. I'll just ask them. Yep. So just the first thing is the safety precautions were totally geared to COVID restrictions, and now we don't have those restrictions. So I guess my first question would be how many runners would be expected. I didn't actually see any numbers, and then all the spectators. I don't know how many there would be. I do think that I like the routes that are sort of outside the main downtown, because I
Yeah.
think our downtown is becoming way congested. So I think that's in its favor. I like the fact that it's not a beer fest. That's in
Yep.
its favor also. However, there is in each of these races, there is a substantial course through some small streets. And I'm wondering if anybody had reached out to the residents and asked them what they felt about not one, but two marathons coming through, or half marathons coming through small streets. I think about the area around Forest Street and I think it's Gregory Island Road. I mean, those are pretty small streets, and I realize that if there were spectators, we're not going to have a ton of people around there. They're more likely to be on the main roads. But these are things, as we know, I'm always thinking about the impact of things on the citizens of this town. And so those are the two questions I have. How many runners, and do the neighbors know and have any objections to these runners going through, their quiet little streets?
I don't believe anybody's, reached out to the residents out there. I think that the police just felt that because the races have happened in the past for a number of years and they've never had any complaints about them. They also said they tend to get about 100 or so participants, and where it's a serious race, half marathon should take at most 2 to 3 hours to run. So at any given point along the route, you're only going to have any interruption for a couple of hours. And the police again told me that they felt that the times that the races are planned, they're not really likely to interfere with traffic, or it's not a high volume time. It's not a time where they're going to be interrupting any of the normal. They've never had any problems with the races in the past.
Okay. Those were my questions.
Jamie or Darcy, any comments before we vote on this?
If they've been running here for how many years did you say? Or
Well, they've only been
have they
doing
run here
this-
before, or
They've
is
only
this?
been doing this a few years, so it's not like they have a long history. To be honest, a few years, I think, is a fair statement.
And
I think it goes back to at least 2017, but
Right.
Yeah, 2017, correct.
Right.
So he's done it for 2017, 18, 19. I did not do it in 20 and doing it in 21. So this will be the fourth year.
in Hamilton.
Correct.
yes.
Yay. Well, nobody's complained, but I do think neighbors should be, warned, maybe an email or something, just let them know that
We
there's.
can, if they get approved, we can ask I believe the Code Red I believe our Code Red system can separate out streets by
idea.
address, so we can send directed messages to the streets that are affected
That's a good
prior
idea.
to the.
Especially if they're having, if someone's having a big giant graduation party in that area or something, and they might need to, make sure the streets aren't blocked.
Right.
Yeah, Joe, that's comforting to know that there's not a huge group. I mean, 100 people, that's certainly very doable. And
Right.
people.
These are both Sundays, correct?
Yes.
They're both Sundays, okay.
Yeah.
And there's no booze involved. That's a biggie.
No, there's no beer tent. There's no beer tent involved. This is as I said, these are for serious runners, people who are, either like to run or are trying to qualify for a full marathon somewhere. So.
Well, we know I won't be in that group, so.
Me too.
You can cheer them on. You can cheer them on.
I'll cheer them
All right,
on.
can I have a motion to approve the Yukon races for September 19, 2021 and October 24, 2021 as the routes as proposed in the packet today?
So moved.
I have a second. Second by Jamie. A roll call vote. Start with Rosie.
Could I just make one more
Yes.
one more comment here, that I know we're just approving this without input from citizens, and and there very well may not be any and I'm just how can I balance my feeling that it's okay with respecting the rights of citizens to have some input in this as well? I don't know.
I mean, it was, I know we didn't have specifics on it, but we have talked about it for a few weeks without, I know we didn't have specifics, but we didn't also get any questions, Joe, from
Right.
anybody when I was on the meeting. I mean, it's been around for 3 years, and these all are public streets that they're going to be on with our police to watch it. So, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, Rosie, but,
Yeah.
we have not had any negative feedback since 2017 with the race that I'm aware of. So,
And it goes kind of the
Um,
same general route. I think I remember seeing some runners sort of on the periphery of town, and you're right. It was a small group. Nobody seemed to mind. So that's a good point, and that's a good support point. I will offer my support of this based on the lack of anybody saying no. This is not what I think is a good idea. Okay.
okay, Darcy Dale?
Oh, are we voting now? Okay, yes.
Yes.
Darcy Dale, aye.
Jamie Newton?
Jamie Knutson, aye.
Go back to Rosie's because I don't think I quite got your register up, but Rosie
Yeah, Rosie Kennedy, aye.
and William Olson, aye. Okay, good. No, I think it's important that we promote events, and I also agree that, I think this was a little sloppy up front because we didn't have all the information at the first time, but they did come back to us with very good information. So I think they know in the future to provide this, and I believe it was the right thing for us not to approve it the first time around because we didn't have the right information. So
Yeah.
so that is all that's on our agenda. We can talk about agenda for next time. So I talked about the fact that go back to the practice of including another select board member to set the agenda with Joe. So I'll reach out to Rosie for next. Rosie, if you necessarily had a busy week next week, so I don't know if you want to do it this week or skip this week.
I have a not busy week next week, which is a
Okay,
miracle.
okay. So I'll reach out to you and we'll talk with
Okay.
Joe, and then we'll go to Darcy the following me, and then Jamie, and then to Sean. I think the only thing that we had on the agenda was obviously something we talked about tonight. We'll continue to talk about next week, and then there was some conservation thing for 375 Bridge Street that we need to get on the agenda for next week or next time.
Well, shall I make a motion?
Joe, anything else we need to talk about?
No, I mean, we can talk about it on the agenda setting. We had, you mentioned the thing, you got board committee renewals coming up. Those won't be, new appointments. Those will be renewals of people who their terms are ending, and you haven't in the past expected them all to show. So I need to know ahead of time, do you want them all to be there? Because this will be a much busier, it'll be a much busier in-person meeting at that point then, if we're meeting in person. But in the past, you've approved the renewals list without having to have all the returning members present. Is that okay for the future, for going forward still?
Renewals, I'm fine with. Especially since it's going to be our first in-person meeting. But I'm interested to hear from Rosie and Darcy and Jamie if they think renewals should show up.
Oh, I think if it's a renewal, that they've already showed up.
Yeah,
So
exactly. They've been showing up for the last 2-3 years.
Right. So we could encourage but not insist under those circumstances, I think.
Great idea. Yeah, we encourage but not require.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, there you go. Be
I will share
friendly.
that message. We'll have a good list for you by the next meeting. Corinne's already been working. Corinne had been working on it with Pat before he left, so we should be in good shape for that meeting. That's the only thing you didn't mention. So.
And
Okay.
Bill,
All right.
Bill, just to
yes.
reiterate, you're going to send us the list of Appoint,
Yes.
our
all
list
the committees,
and
yes,
things.
boards and
Okay,
committees.
super.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, Darcy, I think we're ready for your motion.
I move that we adjourn for the evening.
And I'll second that.
All right. Well, thank you for making my first meeting eventful and pleasant. So I will go to roll call vote. Rosie Kennedy.
Rosie Kennedy, aye, and well done tonight, Bill.
Yes.
Darcy Dale.
Darcy Dale, aye.
Jamie.
Jamie Knutson, aye.
And William Olson. I have a good night and a good week, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye,
everybody. Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.